Good afternoon. This is Mike Motherway with a demo of the Sapience Manufacturing Hub. I'll start here. This is just a blank slate view of the manufacturing hub, just blank source and a blank target. So let me just say a few words about the source and target. So on the source side, we have in the IBM cloud here, you can see I'm logged in. I've got 4 server instances running, an app server, a DB server, a couple others. And the app server is running the API endpoints on this endpoint here. You can see you can hit this with Postman. So for example, this lot info endpoint, you hit that and it responds with some JSON that describes particular lot info. There's a lot listing endpoint. You can hit that, respond with the status code 200 and some JSON. On the target side, let me just move this that out of the way. On the target side, you can see we've got this account on SAP Cloud with an instance, a trial instance of SAP S/4HANA. And if you take a look at that, it's got an endpoint here. It's just a health check endpoint showing you that S/4HANA is running at this endpoint. So you do a query, and you can see we start off with a couple of lots here that already existed. And so the idea with the manufacturing hub is that you can import the JSON response from IBM, which looks like this. You can declare this as an instance of the IBM API response, and you can see all the data parameters there. And then similarly, on the target side, take that little bit of JSON from SAP S/4HANA API endpoint, open that as an example instance, and see how that schema is structured. And so the idea is here that engineers can simply map one to the other. So for example, wafer counts, important parameter. You can map wafer counts from IBM to the wafer counts and the total wafer counts in S4, and then the used wafers to used wafers. And then things like the carrier ID can be mapped to carrier ID. I think I missed. Grab the carrier ID. Sorry, gotta grab this. Carrier ID to carrier ID and map that. And so on for all the fields that you might be interested in. And so the hub will make sure that all the data types are mapped properly. So for example, you can see here on the IBM side, wafer counts are integers, whereas on the SAP side, wafer counts are strings. So for integers, the integers are mapped to strings as you would expect. Although you can manually override these. So for example, here is a transformation where the integers can be forced up or down, or you can put a ceiling on them, make sure you use absolute value. And then similarly for strings, there are simple transformations you can do, like append or prepend, force them to uppercase, things like that. But typically the hub is intelligent enough to handle these data type conversions on its own. So when you're done with all the mapping, you simply export this as a route. And then the manufacturing hub, which is running here locally, will run that route and then start pumping data, updated MES data into SAP. And so you can see here, we've got additional lots, lot name, lot 30, 31, and 34. Looks like there's already 60 of these or so running since I started manufacturing hub. So these are being updated as the data becomes available in IBM SciView. So this is a simple example of a really simple API routing. These can get far more complicated. So for example, this is an open API spec in Swagger for machine data from Sapience. So this is an example I can show you here where the data collection plan data from an equipment can be mapped here is the DCP schema information. So you save this schema into a file and import that. It's like we did the IBM data. So I've got that XML schema here, import that as an example instance, and you can see how now you can get data as the machine provides it, and as event data or trace data. And so you can have multiple sources of information mapped to a target or even multiple targets. And these routings can get quite complex. In fact, you can even daisy chain them end to end, one to another, and create much more complex routings. So that's the tour of Manufacturing Hub. Thanks for your attention.